Welcome back to Rooted in Impact, a United Way of Coastal and Western Connecticut podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Gaudiano, and today I'm joined by Sean Fitzpatrick, who is the Executive Director of Real Food CT, a nonprofit based in Newtown that's working to expand access to fresh, locally grown food across Fairfield, Litchfield, and New Haven counties. Today, we'll dive a little bit into how Real Food CT is addressing food access through local agriculture, the power of partnerships, and what it takes to lead innovative, community-driven solutions. So, Sean, thank you for being here today.
Hey, thank you, Ashley. Happy to be here. Thank you for the invite, and thank you for all that you do in your leadership in the United Way. Everybody appreciates it.
Wonderful. So let's jump right in. Who and what is Real Food CT?
Real Food CT, we are a nonprofit of 501c3 based out of Newtown, Connecticut, and we get locally grown healthy food to communities that need it. We started out as a community farm at Sticks and Stones Farm in Newtown. We pretty quickly opened up a second community farm because growing food was pretty exciting for us, and it was accessible. We had a great small group that kind of forged together at the very beginning of the nonprofit for us. And after the second community farm, we started going to farmers markets. We started getting involved with our farming community at large here in our region and started to find out that there was surplus and gleaning opportunities all over for these farms. And there really wasn't an intermediary making it easy for that food to get to food pantries and community service centers. So we have been doing that now for 7 years, Ashley.
Wow.
Yup. So we're in year 7, 8. That first year of community farm building was a lot of weed pulling, a lot of shaping in the dirt. But we're kind of cranking now here, year 7. Last year in 2025, between gleaning, surplus, community farms that we run, we donated about 160,000 pounds of healthy food to about 35 different food access partners.
Wow, that's amazing. You don't typically think of a farm being a nonprofit organization. So talk to me a little bit about how and why that happens and what you saw or why you felt like you needed to start a nonprofit in this space.
Yeah. So for me, it was, personal. I've been in health, fitness, nutrition, and public health. For me, it was a personal journey of healing kind of led me to locally sourced food and a deeper understanding of how what you put into your body, becomes who you are, becomes a representation of your health. And as I was getting started in learning about the nonprofit sector and the local food system, the opportunities just started to define themselves. That when you go and volunteer at a local food pantry or food bank, you'd get a sense of what kind of food options were available for those if you were having a really hard time. And then once you start reading some of these wonderful United Way Alice reports that are just so informative. Everybody in our towns, in our counties should just read that as adult homework here. But
you're hired, Sean.
Yeah, I got you. I tell everybody to read it. I share it with everybody because it is mind blowing. It is, and it really what it does is it kind of kicks the doors open on not just that poverty level of knowing that, all right, well, there's parts of our population that are struggling for a variety of different reasons, but then there's also like a lot of people that are just day to day or month to month having a really hard time. And there's, between the two, it's a lot of people, and you go around and you see what resources are available. And our team started putting together that our local farms really weren't being tapped as the resource that they were in other regions that are doing a good job of incorporating them into their local food access organizations. And so we found that you have a very willing I also tell people my two favorite populations are the farmers and the food pantry directors, because you just have this, these wonderful people working equally as hard in different kind of complementary realms, and the farmers want to be involved, and so we found that there was surplus available. Gleaning is when you go to the farm and help them harvest food that would otherwise have gone to waste, or they may not have enough of staff or enough of time, or there's a short window of when they've got to get the next crop into the ground, and these are things that exist all over the country, all over the world, and there was a little bit of a gap here. So we decided the community farm was going to be our home base, so we could grow our own food and then build some farm infrastructure that could then also support some of the other farm to pantry work that we grew into.
That's awesome, Sean. And so you have the community farm where you're actually growing product, right?
Correct.
And you are gleaning and partnering with other farms. Is that correct?
Correct.
And
Yes.
that's how you've been able to get the 160,000 plus pounds.
Correct. And so those are our main pathways. And then as we kind of grown up and you start getting some refrigerated trucks and vans and things like that, and kind of some fun partnerships, within the United Way or food rescue, all of a sudden some opportunities will come up where there's you could go get pallets of surplus food. So then the surplus institutional pathways of extra food are also become opportunities for organizations like ours, where if you need a truck to move pallets of food and move those pallets to smaller food pantries that don't have trucks or vans for transportation, like we make ourselves available to answer that call and provide assistance.
That's great. And so, how does that change what a food pantry is able to offer? I think a lot of people have never had to go to a food pantry. Now, you were right in referencing the Alice report. 40% of people in our community, sometimes as high as in areas like Bridgeport, 66% of people sit at or below that Alice threshold, meaning, to your point, they have a hard time paying for the day-to-day, month-to-month, year-to-year expenses. But there's still 50% plus of a population who maybe has never been to a food pantry. What does it normally look like? And how does your ability to provide gleaned and surplus food change the landscape of a food pantry and shopping patterns for people?
Yeah, I think, that's a good question. I think a lot of the pantries do such a good job in personalizing and creating an accessible experience. It's really wonderful. So it would be a lot like you just are going to in most of the cases, you're going to a small market, or, you have that feeling like you can go and pick out a couple of things or see what they may have available for that week or for that month, whatever the pattern is. But to be able to provide seasonal produce is a real gift. It provides a little extra, especially fruit and everybody's favorite vegetables. I mean, they're just so well received. Everybody's so grateful to receive them. It's great to be able to communicate to our farms how our farm partners that are donating, just how appreciative the food pantries are and the communities are. So being able to go and kind of round off some meals of whether you have some rice or some canned goods, and then supplement that and add in the fresh seasonal produce as the year goes on is it's a really nice thing to be able to do.
Yeah, I love that framing of being able to round off, because you do go into food pantries and they are working really hard to provide not just shelf stable, but fresh produce, dairy, meats, right, to the best of their ability. But that is a hard area. And so what you're doing adds to that and really helps people to be able to put a full plate of food, right? And to give kids strawberries when strawberries are in season.
Right.
What are some of the biggest food access challenges you see in community right now?
I do think that the sourcing, the aggregation continues to be an issue on the small and mid scale, in my opinion. And we've been fortunate to be part of the state aggregation groups through the Department of Agriculture for the last couple of years, and kind of follow along a little bit on how food is getting from our farm communities to institutions like larger food pantries, schools, hospitals, those kinds of things. And there still seems to be there's not quite yet a real synchronicity between farms and moving bulk food into centers and then getting it into smaller pantries and organizations. That there's still some gap there. And so we're continuing to try to work towards a model that can access some of the larger deliveries and help move larger amounts of food, that when those parts become available, that it's important to have organizations that can step in to store food, utilize cold storage, handle pallets and larger amounts of produce, be able to distribute that amongst lots of contributing partners or receiving partners. So there is still a gap in that small and mid-size aggregation space that requires some long-term thought and strategy and partnerships.
And are there conversations happening at the state level with all of those stakeholders, right? Your farm partners, your food pantries, organizations like yours. Are those conversations happening in a meaningful way right now?
Yeah, and they've been ongoing. And I think that when you kind of zoom out and take a look at where the state is, there's a lot of upstart, smaller hubs that are doing phenomenal work, some close by to us, some in other parts of the state. And how do you kind of create some synergy between some working partners, and how do you utilize resources, and how do you team up on maybe some transportation or trucks or delivery pathways? And so I think there's everything takes, unfortunately for my personality, everything takes longer than I think it should. I think everything should be done yesterday, but I think they're ongoing things, and there is some good momentum, and there are some really great participants across the state of Connecticut that are working towards some cohesive goals here.
That's fantastic, Sean. Let's take a quick break. When we return, we'll continue our conversation here on Rooted in Impact.
Across coastal and western Connecticut, families are working hard every day to build stable, healthy lives, but for many, the path to financial security isn't always clear. That's where United Way Coastal and Western Connecticut comes in. In partnership with the community, United Way is addressing critical needs and creating equitable pathways to well-being, from access to childcare and food to financial education and workforce support. Because when individuals have the tools to succeed, entire communities grow stronger. Serving 27 communities across Fairfield and southern Litchfield counties, United Way is working toward a future where every person is healthy, safe, and economically secure. This is more than a vision. It's a shared commitment. To learn more or get involved, visit unitedwaycwc.org.
All right, Sean, so we just talked a little bit about kind of what's happening at the state level. Talk to me about what you see as maybe biggest opportunities, biggest challenges in this space at scale, and then we'll drill down from there.
Yeah, super easy question, Ashley. Thanks. We're just gonna talk for another 4 hours on this one, but
no big deal.
Yeah, we'll squeeze it into 10 minutes for this awesome podcast. Listen, well, I do want to highlight and it'll be a bridge to describing some of the answers and thoughts related to that question. So we just received the LFPA, Local Food Purchasing Assistant Grant. So we were one of the awardees that the state of Connecticut released money, over $1.5 million to the Department of Agriculture. And then they divided that into 12 or so groups across the state. And what that essentially is, it's the extension of a program that started at the federal level after COVID. And we are now going to be buying food from our farm partners in the region to get that food directly to food pantries. So this is essentially a stimulus program that we are stewards of a fund that is now buying food, A-level produce. Now we're paying all of our farms money for their product and getting that right into all of our food pantry partners across the Danbury, Naugatuck Valley area, Bridgeport area, so on.
That's congratulations. And that's a multiplier effect, right? Like your ability to take those dollars, infuse it into the local farm economy has a multiplier effect down the road. So that's really, really wonderful. Congratulations on that award.
Yeah, thank you. And so we're excited because, well, the end product, you get more food to the food pantries. But mostly you get stimulus money to our farms. And these are, our small and mid-sized farms they're hardworking communities, and they're working super hard to try to gain access into new markets. And like we were saying earlier, that the market opportunities could be there with larger food access organizations that have budgets and that purchase food. And the more viable our local farm communities are and our local farms are, the more engaged they are, the more willing they'd be to find wholesale prices for purchasing from our pantries and food access organizations, the more surplus and gleaning opportunities are. So the better our farms do, the more there is, the more abundance of food that there is. The more touch points you have, the more there might be an extra couple crates of lettuce or a half a field of tomatoes that might need to be gleaned or harvested. So we want them to be engaged in part of the process. So we're looking at as a steward of this fund to kind of introduce those relationships and see how do we kind of move forward as the money gets used this year and the next year. How do we try to build something ongoing that'll continue the relationships between farms and food access partners?
And how many farms will you work with as a result of this funding?
Probably upwards towards 15 core farms or so. And then also, we have some larger ones that we know are going to be reliable purchasing partners. And then there's going to be some new beginning farmers that we're going to try to introduce into the fold and onboard a little bit and get to know them a little bit more and give them a little bit of a boost as they're getting their legs underneath them as well.
Okay, so a great opportunity for you to not only work and stabilize with existing relationships, but also branch out and form some new relationships.
Yes. So excited about all of that, and excited about some opportunities that we'll be working on to extend the relationships past this year and into the future. So now that kind of like I led with that as my answer. I wanted to mention the LFPA, Ashley, but also just to touch on just that the overall concept of where do the pieces fit in the food system? How do you incorporate the local farms and bring farm viability up a whole nother level? How does that, as farm viability in our state moves up another level, how do food access organizations kind of become involved and kind of reap some benefits in developing those relationships a little bit more? So for us, we're looking at infrastructure. And we see that there is a great need for larger and more cohesive food system infrastructure that can serve a multitude of services. So for us, being able to grow food and produce food, we love doing it. We see it as a market opportunity for a nonprofit that needs to build and diversify its revenue a little bit. We also see a huge need for larger hub aggregation facilities. And that means how do we build larger cold storage, loading docks, capacity to dock trucks and move pallets of food, and do that on a scale that you can get involved in some of that mid and larger scale food surplus and food rescue, and move food and sell local farm food into different institutions. And so that's where we see ourselves going, and we're exploring some community investment fund opportunities in some of the towns that we serve that could be a new home base or an expanded home base for us in the future.
I love what you do and the way you've talked about it, Sean, because you really are playing this role as connective tissue between so many things that I think innately we know are connected, but often feel so disparate, right? We often think about our farming system as sitting over here, and then our food pantries as sitting over here, and then the people who need food as being kind of a third spoke on that wheel. And really, it's all so connected, and you all are so centrally located in the middle of that and trying to bring them together. And so I love the work that you're doing and the mission of Real Food CT. It's really incredible what you've done and become in the last, as you said, 7 years.
Yeah, thanks, Ashley. I mean, and we have a great team. We have a team that really, from the very beginning, just kind of laid it out and just worked on getting food from A to B, and a lot of people that donated a lot of their time, and fortunately, we're very fortunate now to have picked up a variety of supporters that have kind of helped us build out the framework of a staff, paid staff that we can support volunteers and incorporate groups and really go out and execute, and all at the same time kind of taking what we know and what we've learned about the integrated parts of the food system and start to look ahead and say, all right, well, if we could, we're not that far away from taking this next jump and building a piece that would be permanent, Connecticut infrastructure in the food access space. So that's what we're striving for.
Yeah, and so Sean, as we wrap up, what are you most proud of, and what gives you hope when you think about the future?
Yeah, I mean, I'm proud of everybody that's involved. That's on our team, and that's the farmers that work hard to grow this food and then do that extra effort to make sure that any of their extra doesn't go to waste. Proud of all of them. Proud of all the food pantry partners and people that are just either volunteering or just dedicating their lives to helping their community members. It's a really special energy to be a part of in service that you're just kind of connect. Anytime you're meeting any of these people, there's a shared service energy. Even for what you do, Ashley, it's all the same. There's kind of a common thread that's you're proud to be part of it. And so I love that. I do love that part of it. I do also love that this feels still like a space that there is problem solving that could be done. I like the problem solving part. I enjoy the variety of pieces that you gotta kind of somehow put this puzzle together, and not just be chasing the food that day to try to get it from A to B, but also how do we set up some pieces that could really, really influence a lot of people for good moving forward in the state? And that's really what nonprofit, sustainable nonprofit work is. How do you build something that is going to last and will have an impact for the next generation?
Yeah, absolutely. Sean, your energy is contagious. I am always so grateful to sit down and talk with you. I love what you all are doing. And, we have an amazing community of nonprofits here in Connecticut and certainly in the regions that our United Way serves. We're just really lucky to be a part of that and grateful to you and the Real Food CT team for everything that you do. So thank you. Thank you for being here with me today. We will be sure to share information about Real Food CT in the podcast link so that people can go check it out and learn more. But again, thank you very much for joining me today.
Well, thank you, Ashley. I appreciate you and your time. And as people check on those links, I mean, we're always looking for some farm groups to come out, and for anybody that wants to come and do some farm gleans or surplus trips with us, and then the rest of the board committees. And I mean, there's plenty of ways to get involved in a growing team. And we appreciate you giving us a platform today. It's been nice speaking with you.
Of course. I'm Ashley Gaudiano. This is Rooted in Impact. Thank you very much for listening. Have a great day. At United Way of Coastal and Western Connecticut, we work side by side with our community to address critical needs and advance equitable pathways to well-being and financial security for everyone. Rooted in Impact is a podcast that highlights how we are making a difference in our communities. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to learn more about us, visit unitedwaycwc.org. And if you're interested in being our podcast sponsor, we'd love to have you. You can find new episodes every other Tuesday wherever you get your podcasts, including Spotify and Apple Podcasts.